예, 요만치밖에 못하냐?
Hello, this is Veno again, the guy who answers questions that nobody asked. So, I've been a Project Moon fan for a long time, ever since Library of Ruina was in early access and only was developing like the second or third row of Star of the City. And ever since then, I've spent a lot, an unhealthy amount of time really, thinking about everything Project Moon related, and just kind of learning about the story and production and the company itself. And today I've got this idea in my mind, oh, I should play Limbus company from start. I should use my low-level identities and replay the story from the beginning. And I'm not sure if I'm actually gonna go through it. It's not a very fun experience being a new player in Limbus. And I'm not sure if I should create a new account or continue on my old one. But that got me thinking about the details of all the Cantos and the details that I may have missed. And that thought process kind of led to the underrated aspects of the story, mainly the side characters. And so I thought, hey, I have my general favorites among the sinners, among the antagonists, among other major characters, so why not rank the side characters instead? Each and every Canto has a pretty sizable side cast. These characters help move the plot along the way and help this Canto sinner in their character development. And of course, not all of them are created equally, so that poses a question for me. Who are the best side characters? Now, the way I'm gonna determine this is gonna be purely subjective and will stem from my personal enjoyment of those characters. I will use some objective reasoning for my decisions, but in the end, some of these decisions are gonna be pretty self-indulgent. I do not claim to know anything about great character writing, and I encourage you to list your favorite side characters in the comments. Okay, I'm also gonna put some restrictions on my choices. These gonna work kind of like rules for ranking. Now, first, I do not count as side characters the sinners, obviously, the antagonists, and Charon and Virgilius, since Charon is just gonna take every single spot. And by antagonist, I mean major ones, someone like Dongrang or the Erlking. Mid-bosses, though, are fair game. Second, there won't be any character repeats. That means that Shichun won't be able to sweep both Canto 7 and Canto 8. And third, I wanted the third rule, but I couldn't think of one, so let's just begin with Canto 1. Alright, so for the first chapter of the story, we've got the following cast. We have the N-Corp Goobers, the Father Fixers, some random guys from the dungeon, and Toma. Oh, poor Toma, you had such a bright future ahead of you. Now, it's pretty obvious who I'm gonna pick here. My man Hopkins, come on here. Now, I know that with this choice I'm pulling a major Dino Dave here, but hear me out for a second. Despite this guy being extremely hated by the community, and for a good reason, he is still pretty well written, given the amount of screen time he has, and is perhaps the best character for introducing the mentality of backstreet dwellers, and people of the city in general. He's a weak, pathetic coward who's got no compassion towards his co-workers, but he's also highly pragmatic and focused on his own well-being, which are not positive traits, mind you, but they are really useful for surviving as a fixer. And he is just a grade 8, so he's gotta use every trick in the book. PM really wanted you to hate this guy, but also to understand that this is how a human has to live in this hellhole. His other co-worker just got impaled by an eldritch monster, the team he's supposed to guide is incompetent and dies like flies, even if they've got some crazy reviving technology, and this dead weight is leading everyone into the toxic corridors of an underground facility. What else can he do but cut his losses, gather the loot, and leave? For him, that's the most logical course of action. Going any further would just be asking to get himself killed. The only somewhat shaky moment in his logic is the fact that he states himself. The sinners are Red Gaze's minions, a caller's subordinates. Was he not expecting Virgilius to ask questions to Hopkins' office? Maybe even take revenge on him? I guess he could lie in his report that the sinners died due to their own negligence or something, but Hopkins is either a gambling man or didn't think that far ahead. Still, his character is something a new player has to see to understand what Project Moon's setting is like. And that's what Canto 1 is all about, setting the stage. Hopkins just so happened to be the perfect actor for that stage, and that is what makes him my favorite. Alright, here are the characters who had their debut in Canto 2. We got the gang leaders, this guy, and Effie and Sod. There's honestly no competition here, Effie and Sod take the cake, and it's not really fair picking only one of them, but if I had to, I guess I'm taking Effie, because Sod will have a lot of screen time in the future, and Effie really plays a role only in Canto 2 and somewhat in Canto 3. I do love them both though. I'm not sure if I really should explain my choice, because every other side character in Canto 2 is kind of middling. We got the funny Tian Shu boss, we got Ada, but that's pretty much it. And our duo becomes really important in the story and have a really cool dynamic between them. It is said that they understand each other without even speaking, so they have incredible chemistry with each other. And I was genuinely upset when Effie died in Canto 3, so yeah, I'm giving the Canto 2 spot of my favorite character to him. Moving on to Canto 3. And, that's not a lot. So the Blue Man group counts as side characters, even though there's one case that I'm gonna mention later. But besides Damien, because no way he's my favorite, we only have Guido and Siegfried. Okay, so Siegfried appears only in 2 stages. He poses as kind of a hero, really reminds me of My Hero Academia style of hero. He's all about heroism, he's very jolly, he's a cool dude, but he doesn't do really anything else. We know pretty much nothing about him, so I have really no opinion on him. I really want him to return in a future Canto, see how he interacts with Don Quixote, especially with the Don Quixote post Canto 7. But yeah, he's not really a strong candidate, so that only leaves Guido. There's not much to analyze with Guido. He's loyal to his cause and to his leader, he's persistent and fatally unrelenting, he's even somewhat forgiving, with him giving a chance for the sinners to repent, by killing Dante. But there's really not much to talk about. There is some depth to his character in the end Kromer Saudi, with how he starts to doubt the ideals of the whole organization, but I don't want to involve ID stories into this, since they are locked behind gacha. Oh, right, here's the third rule. Identity stories will not be accounted for. Phew, I knew there was something missing. Canto 4, in comparison to the previous one, is much better off in terms of the amount of characters. We've got the K-pop workers and the terrorist gang. It is, though, ultimately comes down to only 2 worthy characters, in my opinion, Sang Yi and Dongbang. And while Sang Yi is a fantastic perspective on an alternative, more fulfilled version of Yi Sang, my choice is the sinner's blooming companion of the past, Dongbang. Honestly, the more I reminisce about Canto 4 and its characters, the more I appreciate them. Dongbang is one of those characters. The first time we see her, she bears resentment towards every technology in the city, believing it to be the source of everyone's suffering. And while that is a flawed way of thinking, you can't help but sympathize with her when you learn what she went through. A past filled with starry skies of her hometown, being left behind to pursue a new, prosperous life in T-Corp, making inventions to benefit the city, just for them to end up hurting others. Forced to give up her life's research due to a certain traitorous friend of the past, Dongbang is now certain that humanity has been on the wrong path this whole time, and that everything should return to soil, so that one day people could bloom as flowers once more. Just how the spice bush flowers decorated the memories of her home. That's how I associate it in my head. Beautiful. And also nostalgic. Dongbang, along with Dongrang and Yi Sang, represent those ideas very well. I really need to replay past Cantos. I probably missed a lot on my first playthrough. But right now, we've gotta move on. It is time for Canto 5. This is perhaps my favorite side character cast in the whole game. We got the Pequod crew, the guys allied with the middle, some other randos, and I know there is one very obvious candidate here, and my decision will probably have me recorded in the Book of Vengeance. Because no, my favorite is not Ricardo. My favorite side character in the whole game is Queequeg. Now, I'm not a big fan of Canto 5. I find a lot of its elements are pretty silly and played up. I don't really like Ahab as a villain and don't get her motivation. Everything that is linked to her doesn't make sense. People tend to be absolutely brainwashed if she yaps enough. Maybe I'm missing something there, but I like almost everyone from the side characters, including the Pequod crew. But the most compelling to me is definitely Queequeg. She's not a terribly complex character, she's just like the other crew members. She wants to escape the past and sail towards a new future. even if she doesn't really know what that's going to be exactly. One thing's for sure, that future will be with Ishmael. And Queequeg's relationship with her is the glue that holds Canto 5 for me. Without each other, they would have surrendered completely to Ahab much sooner. And she's from the middle, which is already a plus for me. I don't really have much else to talk about her, I just adore the companionship she has with Ishmael. Call it Yuri or whatever, but I'm moving on. I don't see much talks about the first two parts of Canto 6, probably because Erlking just steals the show completely the moment he arrives. This feeling of being overlooked is shared between the side characters as well. Now, I consider Canto 6 to be the start of the side character fall-off that the latest Cantos have. Some of the members of the cast were somewhat underdeveloped here, the prime case for me being Linton. He should be playing a much more prominent role in Part 2 and Part 3, but his ending is really disappointing, which cannot be said about the funny violent man himself, Hindley. I love this guy. He is the definition of a pitiful man. All he ever wanted was love from his father, and that want would drive him insane the moment Heathcliff appeared in his life. He fully believed that the moment his violin was broken, that Mr. Earnshaw started to love this random mutt from the streets more than his own son. And that wasn't true at all. The manor was passed down to Hindley, not to Heathcliff. There's no proof that his dad neglected him, only his own childish delusions and Heathcliff's provocations led him to believe that. His father may have been the only man that truly cared for him in the end. Even Hindley's distortion looks pitiful. A bitter wolf, once a man, thrown away from his home to be forgotten about. It's like he was the one who was a dirty, wet mutt, broken, in exchange for a new dog that the owner truly cared about. Man, his story is so sad. Even his sister took away everything he owned, including the last gift from their father. Hindley was just a victim of the circumstances. Of course, he wasn't without flaw, but no one actually tried to understand the guy until it was too late. Only Heathcliff showed some sympathy, the one who was the reason behind this man's downfall, but that sympathy was too little, too late. Hindley is my second favorite side character. I feel for the guy. Hashtag Hindley did nothing wrong. Okay, remember me mentioning the character fall-off thing? Now look at this cast. This is like, what, twice the previous Cantos? All of these side characters are really underdeveloped and are created just to be fodder. The main example being the fixers that enter La Mancha land. However, there is a trio that is still very well written. Here's the thing. I don't feel very strongly about any of these. My pick would be the priest if we counted this Gregor ID. No, there's no bias, why would you even say that? It's definitely not because the bug guy is the best sinner ever, and not because he's got two really cool IDs from this Canto. It's because I really do not care that strongly about any of the characters here, aside from Snacho and Papa Quixote. Sure, there's Shichun, and she's cute, I like her. A normal amount. The Blood Fiends all share the cruel fate of being under the curse, as well as being basically tortured in La Mancha land. There's even Moses, who has the benefit of having a novel behind her, well, half of a novel. But still, I can't so easily say that one character is better than another. If I had a gun to my head, I guess I'm picking Nicolina, the barber. She has a passion for beauty and dresses, clothes that she used to decorate Blood Fiends for carnival attractions. At the start, she had hope in Papa Quixote's dream of a coexistent world, where blood fiends and humans could go hand in hand. But the hunger proved too strong. Any goodwill she managed to accrue was all for naught when the desire for blood overpowers your senses, dictates your every move. Your dear father, the one who you wouldn't even imagine raising your voice against, was just an obstacle that barred you from happiness. And so, you commit betrayal. This story is common to every Manchegan bloodfiend, with some differences here and there. Honestly, if you ask me in a week who's my favorite of this trio, I'll probably give a different answer, but for now, I look at Nicolina of the past and say to myself, damn, that's one pretty lady right here. Canto 8 has the combined problems of both Canto 6 and Canto 7. There's the bloated cast of side characters from 7, and the issue of one of the characters overshadowing every other one, just like Erlking in 6. This time, however, there are two extremely notable examples of this. Unfortunately, I don't think Jia Shu counts due to the antagonist rule. I know he's not exactly the main villain, but he is the main opposing force in parts 1 and 2, as well as in Nocturnal Sweeping. And even if it did count, he's still not my favorite here. That spot goes to Lei Hang. Honestly, depending on my mood and whether I listened to his theme recently, he can be my absolute favorite just based on his aura. Just look at him. The casual, playful attitude, how excited he becomes when there's a strong opponent, the exaggerated swagger of a Brazilian man. He's got it all. Even before death, he's as cool as a cucumber. But he's got this major flaw that I just cannot overlook. No, it's got nothing to do with his character. The problem is him. This guy, dog thing. He ruined my precious Layhang. How could he neuter him like this? I know he beat your ass a couple of times, but why Ricardo wasn't nerfed then? Or Dombaek? Or any of the walls the new player may encounter? Why my precious Layhang? I'm glad I beat him before the nerf, on my first try, but right after I finished the Canto, I wanted to fight him again, to see if my success wasn't a fluke. But no, you just had to ruin it, didn't ya, Director Kim Ji-hun? Look man, I love you, but can you bring in some actually difficult content and not nerf it for once? The railways just don't do it anymore. Maybe bring in a boss attack mode with weekly rewards where we fight story bosses with skill and difficulty or additional modifiers. That would be cool. Anyway, where was I? Oh, right, Layhang. Love the guy. He's not terribly complex, but he doesn't need to be. His attitude is what makes him memorable. The Mersal ID is just a cherry on top. One of my favorite IDs in the game to use. And I guess that's it. We ran out of Cantos. To not end on this kind of confusingly angry note, I'm gonna have a bit of a lightning round talking about side characters of every Intervallo. These usually do not have a huge side character cast, but I'll try to pick someone that I like. 3.5. I think there are only 2 side characters, and one of them literally doesn't have a name, so I guess my favorite is Samjo, but mainly on what he does in Canto 4. He is literally those guys from Reddit who will protect corporations from anything, and because of Canto 4, we know how this usually ends up. Also, he has this really weird story portrait with Faust, which I find a little bit concerning. 4.5. Of the Molar Office trio, I usually pick Rain as my favorite. He's usually the straight guy of the group and always reprimands Olga in a kind of funny way, and I find that really enjoyable about him. Mirko and District 20. Honestly, because of the bot gag, I really love the gnomes. The announcer just carries them for me, and how they are voiced in the Intervallo is also kind of funny. We do have Crayon and Domino who expose a little bit about the outskirts, but nah, the gnomes are coming ahead on this. I'm sorry. The bone claiming. There's really no competition here. Jun clears. His announcer is one of the best, he has a cool demeanor, he cares about his men, and even does a little bit of foreshadowing on what T-Corp is all about by pulling out his watch. It's not that he's the greatest, it's just the Intervallo is very scarce on actually good side characters. Wait a minute, now that I look into it, Ezra actually debuts in this Intervallo. Okay, she's the best, case closed. TKT. I'm a huge Herbert hater. He yaps too much and is too useless for me to even consider him likable. The Time Ripper is out of the question, so the other 2 side characters that I left are Bumble and the Eurodili captain. I guess I'm choosing Bumble since he represents pretty well what T-Corp life is about. If you're rich, you live good 72 hours a day or even more, and if you're poor, you won't be able to take even a step before the start of your next shift. Maybe the TKT rerun will change my mind, but for now, these are my feelings about this. Warp Express. There's literally only one side character, Sasha. Maybe the kid counts since they do have a unique sprite, but I don't think they're even named, so yeah, Sasha it is, I guess. The Checkup. I'm not sure if Hohenheim even counts as an antagonist, but he's definitely not a side character, that's for sure. I do really like Johann and what role he plays in Hohenheim's past. He's also pretty chill and simple-minded, so yeah, I do like him quite a bit. I would maybe have chosen one of the 2 assistants, but they're literally nothing characters. They say like, what, 5 lines in total? Nocturnal Sweeping. We do get the introduction of Jia Shu there, and he's not really an antagonist there, I guess, or maybe he is, I'm not sure. But since he failed to take the Canto 5 spot, I'm gonna give this Intervallo to Ricardo. I don't think I need to explain much why he's here. And that's it for my favorite side characters in Limbus. Most of them are pretty good, some of them even surpass the antagonist of the Cantos, some of my choices may have been pretty unorthodox. You're free to disagree, this is my opinion after all. And I encourage you to put in the comments your list of favorite side characters. Maybe someday I'll do something like a tier list of all the characters in Project Moon. That would be a pretty easy way to farm content. Well, anyway, subscribe, like, do whatever you want, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!